I'm Shaina and today I will tell you about the human eye. So, we all know that we have 5 sensory organs, which are the tongue, which is present in our mouth. We have the eyes, which helps us see. From our tongue, we can taste different things. Then we have our ear, from which we can hear different sounds. Then we have our nose, with which we can smell. There's the olfactory receptor there in the nose that helps us smell. Then our tongue, it has gustatory receptors which helps us taste. Our ear, they have auditory receptors that helps us hear. Then our eyes, they have photoreceptors that helps us see. And then last comes our skin, which has thermoreceptors that helps us feel. So these were the 5 sensory organs. Now we are going to talk about one of the most important sensory organs that we cannot live without. We cannot live without any of the sensory organs, obviously, but one of the most important is our eyes. Imagine a world, what would happen that if we don't have eyes? The colorful world that is around us, we won't be able to see that, right? Imagine the people who are blind by birth or who are blind because of any mishap or any accident. Imagine how difficult their life must been. They wouldn't have been able to see the colorful world. So, let's keep these questions aside and delve deeper into what our human eye is. So I will make a diagram of the human eye and explain the different parts of the eyes. So we all know our eye is a sphere that bulges out from the front. This is like a very rough diagram, as you can see, of an eye. So our eye bulges out from the front. Then I'll just draw. These are the eyelids. Eyelids are also an important part of our eye. They are not exactly connected to the eyeball like the other parts that I'll show, but eyeball is very important. The reason being that it actually helps our eye from preventing it, to prevent it getting hurt, or to prevent dust particles or any unwanted particle that may enter our eye. So the constant fluttering of our eyelids, it actually helps us to prevent dust or any unwanted particle entering our eye. And also, fluttering of our eyelids also helps in maintaining the moisture required for our eyes to function. Or else, if you have ever tried, if you don't blink for about at least 30 seconds or more than 30 seconds, you will feel a sensation, an irritating sensation. That is because your eye, it loses its moisture, and to function well it requires the moisture, and the fluttering of our eyelids helps in that. So therefore we have eyelids for that purpose. Then we have, now first I'm going to draw the whole diagram, then I will explain further. It's very important whenever we are drawing a diagram, we have to label them. So this over here is the lens. It's convex in nature. Okay, so this is a label diagram of the human eye. First, we have the sclera. The outer boundary of the eye is the sclera. So, I explained about the eyelid. Now let's come up to the eyes. How the eye is actually formed, different parts of the eye. Now, imagine a camera. We know that a camera has a lens in it, and the camera, there's a opening in the camera through which the light enters, and then the photo is clicked. So we can imagine our human eye as a camera itself, because our human eye, if we see the light, it enters through the opening called the pupil, and then we have a convex lens. From there, the image, an inverted upside down image, is formed in the retina, and then that passes through the optic nerve into our brain, and then the brain, it processes that inverted image, and it processes and it turns that inverted image to the image that we see. So that is how the whole process is. That was like a vague explanation of the process. So we can imagine our human eye as a camera and therefore we can see the different colorful things around us. A very quick fact: our human eye, the diameter of the human eye is approximate 2.3 or 2.5 centimeter, and the approximate weight of a human eye is around 7.5 to 8 gram maximum. So that was a quick fact about the human eye. Now let's move on to the different parts. The first part, or the first bulge, that when we see our eyes, there's a bulge formed. This bulge is the cornea. So cornea is basically the first part of the eye. The cornea is a thin membranous, it's like a thin membranous bulge that forms on the human eye. And then through cornea, it's the first step, it's the first place that the light passes through when entering our eye. So from the cornea, it travels and enters our eye through the pupil. Now before going to the pupil, let's first talk about iris. Now iris is a dark muscular diaphragm that is present in our eye. So the different eye colors that are there, that is because of the different colors of the iris only. Therefore we can see people having green, blue or black or brown eye color. That is because of the iris. So the iris controls the movement, the contraction or the enlarging of the pupil. So the pupil's movement is controlled by the iris. Let's move on to pupil. The pupil is a small hole on the iris. So as I said, behind cornea we have the iris. So there's a small hole on the iris over here, which is the pupil. The pupil is that hole through which the light enters after it passes the cornea. Now the pupil can either dilate or contract. When we are in a dark room, our pupils, they dilate, or you can say they enlarge a little in size, and therefore we are able to vaguely see objects in dark. Obviously we won't be able to see things clearly in the dark because we need light which will reflect on the surface, and then it will be visible to us. So we will see a very dim object, but still we'll be able to see because of the dilation of the pupil. On the other hand, when we are in a very bright place, for example, if we are in a room where there's a lot of light and it's almost blinding us, so there the pupil, it contracts. The size of our eye, the pupil, it becomes small, and it tries to adjust its size so that less amount of light enters our eye. And therefore the pupil has two sensory cells for this, the rods and the cones. The rods, they are the cells that are sensitive to bright light, while the cones that are there, the rods and the cones. The cones are sensitive to dim light, while the rods are sensitive to bright light, and therefore we can see the dim and bright light. And when we are looking at the bright light, the rods, they come into function, while in the dim light the cones function. Now from the pupil, let's move on to the lens. So our human eye has convex lens. I forgot to mention a part. Ciliary muscles, they are also very important. Okay, so the lens. We have a convex lens in our eyes. So when the light enters, it refracts and the image is formed in retina. So the function of the lens is just what a normal lens does. So the same function is what happens in our human eye as well. Oh, forgot to mention, before the iris there's this you can say a very semi-permeable type or a very fluid that's present here called the aqueous humor. Then we have our lens, and the lens, it is held in place by these ciliary muscles. So ciliary muscles are the eye muscles that are present that helps us keep in place the lens. And also it is there when, for example, when we are contracting our eyeball, when our eyeballs contract or when they enlarge in size depending on the amount of light present outside. At that point, the ciliary muscles actually help us. So sometimes when in old age, basically what happens is our ciliary muscles, they become weak, or not only in old age. For example, if we put a strain into something, or when we are looking at the screen for a long time, or at that time our ciliary muscles, they work very hard so that we can properly see the images and we can properly see what is in front of us. So over time the ciliary muscles, they get weak, and because of that we have various vision defects such as presbyopia. So presbyopia is a vision defect that occurs because of the weakening of our ciliary muscles. So different vision defects, we'll talk about that in a different video. Let's come up to the different parts of the eyes which we were earlier discussing. Now, behind the lens, this whole part of the eye, it is filled with a fluid called the vitreous humor. Then we have the back portion of the human eye, which is a screen, you can say, called the retina. So on the retina, when the light enters, the real and inverted or an upside down image forms of the object that is that we are looking at. For example, if I'm looking at this chalk over here, so right now when the light falls on the chalk, it gets reflected and enters my eyes through the pupil, and from the pupil and through the lens it passes, and an inverted image is formed at the retina. But still I can see that this chalk is erect. I mean, even my hand, it's straight, it's not upside down. This is because when the image is formed at the retina, through that that information passes through the optic nerve into our brain, and our brain processes that information, that chemical impulse, that impulses that travels through our neurons. It processes and then makes us realize the image as in not an inverted but rather in an erect position, and therefore we see the things around us in erect rather than inverted. So that's the whole function of the retina and optic nerve. So optic nerve basically is to it's like a pathway for the visual images or the visual information to transfer to the brain through nerve impulses. So that was the function of optic nerve and retina. Then when we look, if we take a look at our eyes, we have this white portion of beside our eyeball, right? This white portion is called the sclera. So it's like that's the white portion, and it's also there to give our eyes the shape, or the spherical shape that it has, is because of that sclera. Now, we also see in our eyes there are millions of tiny capillaries present in our eyes, and that are because obviously our eyes need to function, so they need blood to transfer in them. So we have tiny capillaries in our eyes, and they are sometimes visible to us as well. And then a quick fact again, that after a person dies, it's said that the brain, the heart, it stops working, then comes the brain. It is still, after that, it's still active for 10 minutes, and then at the end, the human eye, it's still active for 4 hours, and in that period of 4 hours the eye donation occurs. So for example, when a person has died and the family members, they want to donate that person's eyes, so in that matter of 4 hours, doctors perform surgeries to take out the eye from the person's body and then preserve it in proper in a proper way so that it can be donated to a person in need. So therefore organ donation of an eye should be done within that period of 4 hours. That was about how much time till after that our human eye, it still remains, it does not function. Obviously a dead person cannot see things, but you can say it's still working. If it's put into another person's body, that person would be able to see, but obviously the other person's body has to accept that eye. So to conclude, our cornea and the aqueous humor are the main portion of the human eye that does most of the refraction of the light, because when the light enters, the function of a lens is to refract the light, right? So the light gets refracted. So most of the refraction is done by the aqueous humor and cornea. The light enters, passes through the cornea, then from the pupil, the hole present in the iris, into the lens where it gets refracted, and then upside down image is formed at the retina, and from the retina the images the visuals pass as nerve impulses to the brain, which identifies that image, and we see the erect image. So that is the whole process of how visuals can be seen by a human eye. So that was all for today. I hope you learned more about the human eye, and this will also help all the 10th graders who are going to give their board. And for more videos, educational videos or talent videos, please subscribe my channel Wunderbar Sisters. Don't forget to click the bell icon and like all my videos. Thank you. Bye bye.